I'm always curious about the calling to priesthood, and I know they're all unique stories.
Hmm.
Um, but was it like something you knew was coming? Was it sudden? Like, I imagine you were serving. Well, I mean, you let me know. Were you serving in the church the whole time up until this
Yes.
kind of, even
So
when
I
you were
would
in Hayward?
I would say Abuna Pshoy like really planted the seed um, when I was in San Francisco, um, and so he kind of, I would say, opened my mind and my heart to this, even as this like as a possible option for me. Like before that, I had
Hmm.
never even considered it. I was thinking about consulting, traditional fields. I was even looking at a professorship. So things like in the field of chemical engineering, and it was
Hmm.
really like the mentorship of like Abuna Pshoy, who really kept telling me, Abuna, or like David, you should consider the priesthood. You should consider the priesthood. You should consider the priesthood. And and then so and it was through like service in the church that um, I really felt like life is about service, and that's true whether you're a priest or whether you're not a priest. That
Hmm.
really the greatest thing that you can do in this world, this is for all people, is to serve God in whatever capacity you can. And
Yeah.
so um, when I started working, I kind of felt like this work is great, but there's an even greater work to do. And
Hmm.
so I think when um, I had moved to Chicago. I didn't know anyone in Chicago except my wife, and but the church was very loving, and they were very warm, and they nominated me to the priesthood, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when he said you should consider the priesthood, do you know what he meant by that? Do you mean like did he mean like this is something like what was he asking you in a way to be a priest at the church over there, or is he just like what does that mean
Yeah, it was
exactly?
pretty direct. Like
Okay.
there was
So
no
they
room
so
for
they he kind of
interpretation.
wanted you to serve over there as a priest.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know there are some youth like young men who just like you love serving in the church, but I don't know if sometimes no one's told them you should consider this, but they themselves want the priesthood, you know? I don't know if you've
Yeah,
ever come across people like that, but I haven't. I don't think it's a bad thing or anything, but what are your thoughts on that when someone is desiring the service because they love it so much?
I think yeah, it's a possible like option. I don't think we should limit the
Mhm.
ability of like our free will. I think what's most important though is it's not just my desire, it should be like also a calling from God,
Right.
And so as long as those two line up, and as
Yeah.
long as the call is there, I think that's what's like, most important. I think like the Eastern Orthodox churches and other, like the Catholic Church, they kind of have a traditional route to priesthood, which is like you go to seminary
Right.
and then you become a priest. And I think one of the beautiful aspects of the Coptic Church is that there is like, you know, there is the flexibility, if you will, of like the spirit that, anyone can be called no matter what background, and so I think we should appreciate that, and as long as God calls, whether I desire or not, that's the most important.
Okay, so you're in Chicago, you're working at this time. The congregation nominates you for the priesthood. You accept the nomination. What do you tell Big Pharma? Like, how does that work practically? Are you like, hey guys, I'm gonna be a priest next week. Bye.
So
Like, what
this
happens?
actually, I told you about Abuna Mina earlier.
Uh-huh.
So it just so happened that Abuna Mina lived in Chicago for a few years, and he worked at the same pharmaceutical company that I worked for.
Okay.
And I mean, this pharmaceutical company is huge. It's like, and thousands, hundred of thousands of employees. and many departments. But it just so happened he's a chemical engineer, I was a chemical engineer. We ended up working in the same group with the same group of people. And so he left, he left the AbbVie, that was the pharmaceutical company. He left AbbVie, became a priest. He didn't become a priest directly, but they all know that he became a priest. So he kind of already paved the way for me as well in that respect. So when I told them, like when I put in my 2 weeks, I'm going to become a priest, they all were like, "Oh, yeah, like me, Mike,"
Yeah.
And
They'd
so
seen
it
it
was, it was
before.
actually very easy, and they were very like congratulatory, and it was awesome. It was very, and they were like, "Oh, this is great," and
Okay, and then you just updated your LinkedIn after that?
I actually cut my LinkedIn. I was like, I don't need this anymore.